Look at the men your age. Really look at them. The guy you played ball with in high school, the friend from your first job, the brother-in-law who could fix anything. Some of them aren't here anymore. And the ones who are, a lot of them look tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. I want to say something out loud that most people are too polite to say. A lot of Gen X men are not going to make it to retirement. Not because the money isn't there, because the body gave out first, because the heart quit before the mortgage did. And here's the part nobody warns you about. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens quietly. One skipped checkup, one more year of, I'll deal with it later. One more weekend you spent fixing everyone's problems but your own. You were raised to carry it, to not complain, to be the steady one. But steady men break too. They just break alone. Stay with me. Because what I'm about to tell you might be the most important hour you spend this year. Let me tell you who Generation X really is, because most people forget about us. We were the kids born roughly between 1965 and 1980, the ones who came home to an empty house. Latchkey kids, they called us. We made our own dinner. We let ourselves in. We figured things out. Nobody hovered. Nobody asked how we felt. And in a strange way, we wore that like a badge of honor. We didn't need anybody. We were the generation that toughened up, kept our heads down, and just dealt with it. But here's what I've come to understand, sitting where I sit now. That same toughness that got us through childhood, it's the very thing that's killing us in middle age. Think about it. We learned early that nobody was coming to help, so we stopped asking, we stopped reaching out. We built a whole identity around not being a burden to anyone. And now we're 50, 55, 60 years old, carrying everything on our backs, and we still won't put it down. Not for a doctor, not for a friend, not even for ourselves. I read something recently that stopped me cold. The men in our generation are dying at rates that don't match the headlines nobody's writing. The chest pains we ignore, the blood pressure we never checked, the drinking we called unwinding, the stress we called just life, it all adds up. And it adds up fast, right around the age when we were finally supposed to exhale. There's a cruel joke buried in all of this. We spent 30, 35 years grinding, saving when we could, telling ourselves that someday it would pay off, that there'd be a someday, a boat, a porch, a quiet morning with nowhere to be and no one needing anything from us. And a lot of us are going to do all the saving and miss the spending entirely. I want you to picture something for me. Picture a man who works his whole life to fill a glass of water, drop by drop, decade by decade. He's careful, he's disciplined. He doesn't drink a single drop of it because he's saving it for when he's earned it, for when he's thirsty enough to deserve it. And then one day the glass is full and he's not there to drink it. That's the story I keep seeing, and I refuse to let it stay quiet anymore. Because the thing is, this isn't really about death. Not yet. It's about the slow leak before the break. It's about the man who's technically alive but who hasn't laughed from his gut in 3 years. The man who eats standing up over the sink. The man whose wife stopped asking how his day was because the answer was always fine, and they both knew fine was a wall, not a word. We don't talk about this. Men our age, we'd rather talk about the truck, the game, the interest rate, the weather, anything but the actual weather inside our own chests. And I understand it. I do. Because to say I'm not okay feels like admitting the whole thing was a lie, that all the toughness, all the carrying, all the not complaining, that it cost us something we can't get back. But I'll tell you what's a bigger lie. The lie that you're fine. The lie that you'll handle it later. The lie that the body keeps no score. The body keeps every score, every late night, every swallowed feeling, every checkup you skipped because you didn't want to know what they'd find. It's all written down somewhere, in the blood pressure, in the resting heart rate, in the way you wake up at 3 in the morning and stare at the ceiling and can't name what's pressing on your chest. And the worst part? Most of us think we're the only one. We look around at other men our age and they look fine, steady, holding it together, and we think, what's wrong with me? Why am I the one cracking under all of this? But here's the secret nobody says out loud. They're thinking the exact same thing about you. Every single one of us is standing in the same storm, holding the same umbrella, pretending we're dry. So before we go any further, I need you to understand something. This isn't a lecture. I'm not here to tell you to eat your vegetables and take up meditation. I'm here because I've watched too many good men do everything right on paper and still lose the one thing that actually mattered. Time, health, the chance to live in the life they spent everything to build. And in the next part, I want to show you exactly where it starts to go wrong. Not at 60, not at the heart attack. Much, much earlier than you think. There's a specific moment, a quiet one, and most men walk right past it without ever noticing it happened. So where does it actually begin? The unraveling, I mean. The slow coming apart of a strong man. It's not the heart attack. By the time the heart attack arrives, the story's already been written for years. No, it begins somewhere much quieter. It begins the day a man decides, without ever once saying it out loud, that his own needs go to the bottom of the list, underneath everyone else's, underneath the kids, the job, the bills, the parents, dead last. And I can tell you almost the exact age it happens. Late 30s, early 40s, right around the time life gets heavy in every direction at once. Think about what lands on a man's shoulders in that decade. The kids are old enough to cost real money. The parents are old enough to start needing help, and you become the one they lean on. The career hits the part where you're either climbing or you're scared you're slipping, and there's no standing still. The mortgage is real. The marriage needs tending or it starts to drift. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, quietly, a man makes a deal with himself. He says, I'll take care of everyone else first, and I'll get to me later. Later. There's that word again. Later is where men go to disappear, because here's what happens to later. It never comes. The list never gets short enough. There's always one more fire to put out, one more bill, one more person who needs you more than you need rest. And so the man at 40 who said, I'll get to me later, becomes the man at 55 who hasn't seen a doctor in a decade, whose only real hobby is being needed, who wouldn't know what to do with a free Saturday if you handed him one. I call it the slow surrender, and almost nobody notices it happening because it doesn't look like surrender at all. It looks like responsibility. It looks like being a good man, a provider, the reliable one, the rock. That's the trap. The very thing the world praises us for is the same thing quietly hollowing us out from the inside. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a man carrying a heavy pack up a mountain. Every year somebody hands him one more stone to put in it. A new responsibility, a new worry, a new mouth to feed. And he never takes a single stone out, not one, because taking a stone out would feel like quitting, like letting someone down. So the pack just gets heavier and heavier, and he tells himself he must be strong because look, he can still walk. But strength isn't how much you can carry. Strength is knowing what to put down. Nobody taught us that. Our fathers, and I think about this a great deal, our fathers carried that same pack until it killed a lot of them too. We watched them do it. We watched them work themselves straight into the ground and call it love. And without ever meaning to, we learned the lesson by heart. We learned that a man's worth is measured by how much weight he can bear without ever once complaining about it. So we don't complain. We carry, and we call it love. But there's a cost to loving people that way, because the man who only knows how to give, who's forgotten how to receive, who can't ask for help to save his own life, and I mean that literally, that man slowly becomes a stranger in his own home, present but absent, providing but not really living. There at the dinner table, but not really there. And here's the cruelest turn of all. The people he's carrying all that weight for, they don't even want the weight. They never asked for it. They want him. They'd trade every dollar he ever earned for one more healthy decade of him, present and laughing and alive. But he can't hear that, because somewhere along the way he confused being needed with being loved, and those are not the same thing. Let that sit for a second. Being needed and being loved are not the same thing. A man can spend his entire life being needed and die, never once having let himself be loved. Never having let a single person in close enough to see the tired underneath the strong, the fear underneath the steady, the boy underneath the rock. This is the part I wish someone had grabbed me by the collar and explained to me when I was 40 years old. That the slow surrender feels noble while it's happening. It feels like the honorable thing. And by the time you finally realize it was a trap all along, you've already handed over 10, 15, 20 years to it. Years you don't get back. But I didn't bring you in here to leave you feeling hopeless. I brought you here because there's a turn coming in this story. There always is. And the turn starts with one uncomfortable question that most men our age will do just about anything to avoid asking themselves. In the next part, I'm going to ask you that question directly. And I want to warn you right now, it's going to sting a little. But the men who can sit with the sting, who don't flinch away from it, those are the ones who make it to the porch. Those are the ones who get to drink the glass of water. Here's the question, and I want you to actually answer it, not just hear it and move on the way we move on from everything that gets too close. When was the last time you did something just because it made you feel alive? Not productive, not useful, not for the family, not for the job, not for the future, not for anybody else, just for you. Just because it lit something up inside you that's been dark and quiet for a long, long time. For a lot of men, that question lands like a punch to the chest, because they have to go back years to find the answer, sometimes decades, and some men can't find an answer at all. They sit there and they genuinely cannot remember the last time they did a single thing purely because it brought them joy. Not duty, not obligation, joy. If that's you, I'm not telling you this to shame you. I'd never. I'm telling you because it's a symptom. It's the check engine light of the soul. And most of us have been driving around with that light glowing on the dashboard for so long that we don't even see it anymore. We've trained our eyes to look right past it. Now let me connect this to the money, because this is a finance conversation too. Here's something I've noticed about men in our generation. We are incredible at deferring. We are the best deferrers who ever lived. We defer pleasure, we defer rest, we defer joy, we defer the doctor, we defer the trip, we defer the hard conversation, all in the holy name of someday. And we apply that exact same instinct to our money. We tell ourselves, I'll enjoy it in retirement, I'll travel when I'm 65, I'll finally slow down once the number is big enough. And there is a piece of that which is genuinely wise. Discipline is real. Saving is real. I am not telling you to blow your nest egg on a sports car in a midlife crisis, but there is a dangerous lie hiding inside the discipline. And the lie is this, that someday is guaranteed, that the deal you made, suffer now and live later, that the other side of that deal is actually going to pay out. Nobody signed that contract on the other side. Nobody. There is no guarantee. The actuarial tables do not care about your savings rate. The heart that's been under 30 years of pressure does not check your 401k balance before it decides whether or not it's going to keep beating. And so you arrive at this brutal arithmetic that I think every man over 40 needs to sit down and do, honestly, just once. We spend our healthiest decades earning money so that we can have money in our least healthy decades. We trade away the years when we could actually hike the mountain in exchange for the money we'll have when our knees can't take the trail anymore. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying it has to be balanced. And most of us never balanced it. We just kept on deferring because deferring felt responsible and spending felt reckless, and we'd rather die responsible than live a little reckless. Picture two men, same job, same salary, same savings. One of them puts away every spare dollar and never takes the trip, never sees the doctor, never picks up the guitar gathering dust in the closet, because all of that is someday. The other man saves almost as much, but every year he takes one real trip. He keeps his body checked and tuned the way he'd tune a truck he wanted to last, and he guards a few hours a week for something that is just his. In 30 years, on paper, the first man has slightly more money, and the second man is the only one of the two still alive to spend a dime of it. That's not a scare tactic. That's just the math that nobody wants to sit down and do. And here's the deeper thing underneath all of it. Money was never supposed to be the point. Money is supposed to be stored life. That's all it is when you strip it down. When you earn, you are converting your hours, your energy, your one short and unrepeatable life into little units you can save up in a jar. And the whole purpose of saving those units up is to convert them back into life later. Back into time, back into freedom, back into mornings that belong to you and nobody else. But somewhere along the way, a lot of us forgot the second half of that equation entirely. We got so good at converting life into money that we plain forgot to ever convert it back. We just keep stacking the stored life higher and higher and never spend a single day actually living any of it. A man can die rich in stored life and dead broke in lived life. And I'd argue that's the most common tragedy of our entire generation. Not the men who ran out of money, the men who ran clean out of time with a full account and an empty life. So in the next part, I want to get specific. I want to talk about the body itself, about the warning signs we're all so practiced at ignoring. Because the soul stuff matters, but the soul lives inside a body, and that body has been trying to get your attention for years, quietly, patiently, waiting for you to listen. Let's talk about the body. The thing we treat worse than we'd ever treat our own truck. Think about how a man treats his vehicle. He hears a little knock in the engine, he's under the hood that weekend. The check engine light comes on, he's at the shop by Monday. He changes the oil on schedule, he rotates the tires. He's careful because he knows that machine has to last, and he respects it. Now think about how that very same man treats his own body. Chest feels tight climbing the stairs? Probably nothing. Tired all the time? That's just age catching up. Out of breath, putting on weight around the middle? blood pressure he hasn't checked since the second Bush administration? He'll get to it. Later. There's that word again. We will spend 4 hours and good money keeping a machine running that we could replace tomorrow, and we'll spend nothing, not 4 hours, not 4 minutes, on the one machine that can't be replaced at any price, by anyone, ever. Why? I've thought about this a long time, and I think it comes down to fear dressed up as toughness. We don't avoid the doctor because we're brave. We avoid the doctor because we're scared. Scared of what they'll find. Scared that if we go in there, the mechanic's going to put us up on the lift and tell us something we can't unhear. So we'd rather not know. We'd rather keep driving and pretend the knock isn't getting louder every month. But the body does not care about your strategy of not knowing. The disease doesn't pause out of respect for your denial. It just keeps working in the dark, quietly, patiently, while you tell everyone at the barbecue that you're doing just fine. Here's what I want every man listening to really understand. The conditions that take down men our age, the heart disease, the high blood pressure, the blood sugar, the slow cooking things, these are not bolts of lightning. They don't strike out of a clear sky. They build for years, often for decades, and for most of that time they're completely silent. No pain, no warning you'd ever notice. Right up until the morning, they're not silent anymore, and by then a whole lot of the damage is already done. That silence is the dangerous part, because we are built to respond to pain. Pain we'll deal with. But the things most likely to kill us don't hurt until it's very, very late. They reward your denial. They let you keep right on believing you're fine. So the men who make it to that porch, to that retirement, to those grandkids, they're usually not the toughest men in the room. They're the men who were humble enough to get checked when nothing hurt, who let somebody look under the hood while the engine still ran smooth, who treated I feel fine not as proof of health, but as exactly the right time to go and verify it. There's a kind of courage we never talk about. It's not the courage to carry more. We've got mountains of that. It's the courage to sit in a paper gown in a cold room and let someone tell you the truth about yourself. That's a harder kind of brave than most of what the world praises in a man. And let me tie this back to the people who love you, because this is where it really lands. You think your toughness, your I'll handle it myself, you think that protects your family, you think you're sparing them the worry. But flip it around for a second. What you're actually doing is gambling with the one thing they can't afford to lose, which is you. The man who skips the checkup to save a little time and money isn't protecting his family. He's quietly betting their entire future on his own denial, and when that bet goes bad, when the silent thing finally speaks up, it's not just him who pays the bill. It's the wife who has to learn to sleep alone in a bed built for two. It's the kids who lose their father a decade or two early. It's the grandchildren who will only ever know him from photographs and secondhand stories. That's the real cost, not the copay, not the afternoon off work. The real cost is everyone who needed you to choose 10 more years of being a little uncomfortable enough to take care of yourself. I know this is heavy. I know it is. But I'd rather sit in something heavy and true with you than blow sunshine and let you walk back out that door the same man you came in as. Because here's the turn I promised you. None of this is destiny, not one bit of it. The very same stubbornness that's been working against us, that bullheaded, no-quit, do-it-myself wiring, that exact same engine can be pointed in a completely different direction. And when a Gen X man finally decides to take care of himself the way he's spent his whole life taking care of everyone else, watch out. because we don't do anything halfway. In the next part, I want to show you what that turn actually looks like. What it looks like when a man your age stops quietly surrendering and starts quietly reclaiming. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it changes absolutely everything. So what does the turn actually look like? Because I don't want to leave you standing in the dark part of the woods. I brought you in here, so I'll walk you back out. The turn doesn't look like what you'd expect. It's not a man who suddenly transforms into some health nut at the gym at 5 in the morning. It's not a dramatic announcement at the dinner table. Real change in men our age is almost always quiet. It happens in small decisions made alone that nobody claps for. It looks like a man finally picking up the phone and making the appointment he's put off for 9 years. Just that. One phone call, the bravest thing he's done in a decade, and nobody will ever know it happened. It looks like a man going for a walk after dinner instead of sinking straight into the chair. Not for a marathon, not for some transformation. Just 20 minutes of moving his body and being alone with his own thoughts for the first time in years. It looks like a man saying out loud to one other human being, "I haven't been doing great." That's it. Just cracking the door an inch. Just letting one person pass the wall of fine. Small things. But here's what I've learned about small things. They compound. The same exact way money compounds, and you all understand compounding. You've watched it quietly work in your accounts for 30 years. Health compounds too. Relationships compound. The little daily deposits, the ones too small to feel like they even matter on the day you make them, those are the ones that build the whole fortune. We get this completely when it comes to money. We know that the boring, unglamorous habit of putting a little away every single month is what builds real wealth, not the lottery ticket, not the home run stock, the boring monthly deposit. We know this in our bones when it's about dollars, so why do we forget it everywhere else? The exact same law governs the body. The exact same law governs a marriage. The exact same law governs your own sense of being alive. Small deposits, made consistently when nobody's watching, compounding silently into something enormous over time. The man who walks 20 minutes a day isn't doing much on any given Tuesday, but give that habit 10 years to compound and it's the difference between a man who gets down on the floor and plays with his grandkids and a man who can only watch them from the chair. The man who tells the truth to his wife once isn't fixing the whole marriage that night. But that honesty, deposited again and again over years, compounds into the kind of closeness most men die never once having known. This is the good news hiding inside all the heavy stuff I've told you tonight. The same generation that's so good at deferring, so good at discipline, so good at the boring, consistent grind, we are perfectly built for this. We already have the exact muscle this requires. We've just been using it on everything except ourselves. Imagine if you turn that discipline inward. Imagine if the same man who never missed a mortgage payment in 30 years decided he'd never miss a walk. Imagine if the same man who maxed out his retirement contributions every single year started making those same relentless deposits into his own body, his own peace, his own relationships. That man becomes unstoppable, not in some loud, motivational, fist-pumping way, in a quiet, sturdy, still here at 80 kind of way. The kind of man who actually makes it to the porch, who actually drinks the glass of water, who converts all that stored life back into lived life, one ordinary day at a time. And here's something nobody tells you about that turn. It's not too late. I don't care if you're 42 or 63. The body is the most forgiving machine ever built. You give it even a fraction of the care you've given everything else, and it will fight like hell to come back to you. It wants to live. It's been waiting this whole time for you to finally get on its side. The years you spent neglecting it, yes, they cost something. But the body doesn't hold a grudge the way we do. It just responds to today, to this walk, to this appointment, to this one honest decision. It starts repairing the moment you start caring. That's not wishful thinking, that's just biology. So if you've been sitting there feeling like you've already missed your chance, like the damage is done, like it's just too late for a man your age, I need you to hear me clearly. The fact that you're still here, still listening, still able to feel that pang in your chest when I describe the man you don't want to become, that pang is proof there's still a fire in there. It is not too late. It's exactly on time. In the next part, I want to bring this all the way home, because there's one last piece I haven't said yet, the deepest one, and it's the piece that ties the money and the body and the whole story together into one truth that can change how you live the rest of your years. Before I bring this all the way home, I want to take 1 second, just one, to say something directly to you. If you've made it this far into the video with me all the way to here, I don't take that lightly. Most people don't make it this far. You did. So let me invite you, and I mean this genuinely. Subscribe to the channel and come spend a little time with us every day. We're trying to have the honest conversations most people are too polite to have. The ones men our age desperately need and almost never get. If that's something you want more of, hit subscribe, and we'll keep showing up for you every single day. And here's the thing I want to say to you specifically, you who's still sitting here with me. The fact that you didn't click away when this got uncomfortable, when it started cutting close to the bone, that tells me everything I need to know about you. It tells me you're not actually one of the men who's given up. You're one of the men who's still fighting, still quietly wondering if it's possible to do this whole thing differently. That's rare. Hold on to it. Now, let me give you that last piece I promised you, the deepest one. Everything I've told you tonight, all of it, comes down to a single quiet truth that took me most of my life to finally understand. Are you ready for it? The point was never to arrive. We were raised to believe that life is a destination. You work, you save, you sacrifice, you grind, and then someday you arrive. Retirement, the finish line, the reward at the end of it all. And so we organize our entire existence around getting there. We treat the present, this day, this hour, as nothing but a toll we pay on the long road to someday. But there is no there. There never was. There is only here, only this day, only this ordinary, unremarkable Tuesday that you're so busy enduring on your way to someday that you forget it's the actual life. This is it. This is the life, not the one coming after the next milestone, after the next raise, after the kids are grown and gone. This one, right now, the one happening quietly while you're not paying attention to it. I think about my own father here. He had a number in his head, the age he'd slow down, the year he'd finally start living. He talked about it for 30 years, the fishing he'd do, the places he'd take my mother. And he was a good man, a disciplined man. He did everything right on paper. But he never got to that number. He spent his whole life standing in line for a show that closed before he reached the front. And I carry that. I carry it every single day. Because I watched a good man trade all his todays for a someday that never had the decency to show up for him. The men who collapse before retirement, and I mean collapse in every sense of that word, The body and the spirit both. They're the men who spent 40 years living inside a future that never came, who postponed their entire life waiting for permission to start enjoying it. The men who make it, who really make it, are the ones who figured out something simple: that the porch isn't a place you finally arrive at when you turn 65. The porch is a way of living that you can start any night you choose to sit down on it. You don't have to wait for retirement to stop surrendering. You don't have to wait for the number in the account to be big enough to start actually living inside your own one life. You can begin tonight with one walk, one honest sentence to someone you love, one appointment you finally make, one ordinary Tuesday lived on purpose instead of just endured and survived. Because here's the quiet arithmetic underneath all of it. Every today you trade away for a someday is a today you never get back. You can always earn more money. You can never earn more Tuesdays. They're the one currency that doesn't compound, the one account that only ever draws down and never up. And the cruel thing is, we spend the most carelessly when we think we have the most to spare. We're casual with our 40s because they feel endless. They are not endless. None of it ever was. In the last part, I'm going to leave you with the one thing I most want you to carry out of here with you. The single image I want stuck in your mind long after this video ends and the screen goes dark. I want to take you back to that glass of water. The man who spent his whole life filling it, drop by drop, decade by decade, disciplined, careful, never taking a single sip, because he was saving it for when he'd earned it, for someday. I've been carrying that image with me this whole time we've talked, but I didn't tell you the end of the story. Because there's another man, same glass, same drops, same long patient years of filling it. But this man, every so often on an ordinary evening, he lifts the glass and takes a small sip. Not enough to empty it, just enough to taste it. Just enough to remember why he's been filling it at all. And then he keeps filling, and he keeps tasting, filling and tasting the whole way through. When the end comes for both men, and it comes for both, the first man dies beside a full glass he never once touched. And everyone says what a careful man he was. The second man dies beside a glass that's a little lower than it could have been. And the people around him don't talk about the glass at all. They talk about the hikes, the trips, the way he laughed from his gut, the Tuesday nights, the fact that he was there, really there, the whole time. Same water, same life. Two completely different ways to spend it. My father died beside a full glass. I've told you that already, in my own way. He filled it for 30 years and never let himself drink. And I made a decision, sitting with that I would not do the same thing, that I would not hand my one life over to a someday that doesn't keep its promises. I'm not going to tell you which man to be. I think you already know. I think you've known since the very first minute of this video, somewhere underneath all the noise. You know which man you've been. And you know which man you'd still like to become. You don't have to become him all at once. You don't have to fix everything tonight. You just have to take the first sip tonight. If this said something true to you, if it found you where you actually live, do two things for me before you go. Subscribe and follow the channel so we can keep having these conversations, the ones nobody else seems willing to have. And then share this with 5 men who need to hear it. 5 men your age who are quietly carrying too much and telling everyone they're just fine. You might be the reason one of them finally makes that phone call. You might be the reason one of them makes it to the porch. That is not a small thing. That might be the most important thing you do all year. And leave me a comment. An honest one, not a polite one. Tell me which man you've been, tell me the one thing you've been deferring, and tell me what you want me to talk about next, because I'm here to have the conversations nobody else will. I'll see you tomorrow. Go take your sip.